This is an interesting topic I think you'll enjoy, and truth is, it's applicable to both of the courses that that you're involved in right now with us, the community-sponsored project course. So I'll probably post it in the learning moments there, but really it's just as applicable. A number of students doing their final projects, the wide open project, uh, have decided to do situations where sports teams and things are involved. So this is be good for everybody to have this material under their belt. So let's move on then. Inverse property. Annotations for multiple, right? Multiple relationships between entities. So most of our work so far, we focus on a variety of different relationships, one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many, et cetera, right? But usually just a single way that two entities relate to each other. But that's not the only thing we run into in the real world, right? So in particular, the inverse property attribute is very useful for clarifying, because otherwise, if you don't have it clarified in how you build your models using this code-first approach in particular, then Entity Framework Core will just throw up its hands and say, hey, I don't know what it is you're trying to do here, and give you a very cryptic-looking error message, right? So let's just think of an example here. Very simple thing here, one relationship between course and teacher, right? So basically, a course is taught by a teacher. A teacher will have a collection of courses that they teach. Maybe it's all online courses, and as simple as that. Very typical thing, no problemo, right? We've done it many times. Okay. What about, if we have two relationships between course and teacher? Maybe online courses and classroom courses. Well, you could start modifying the model and coming up with something like this, right? So of course, you might have an online teacher as opposed to a classroom teacher. And then you might have collections and so on in the teacher for the different ones where they're an online or a classroom teacher, et cetera, right? Problem is, as soon as you try to build a model like that and create a migration or anything else, any framework will throw up its hands in surrender and say, hey, I can't figure this out, right? I don't know which property goes with which one, because really, you have two different type of courses, you have two different type of teachers here. Like how does this relate, right? So what we can do is using the inverse property on the collections, we can specify that, okay, this collection of courses, which we're going to call online, they relate to, through the inverse property, the online teacher. Which teacher in the course? The online teacher object, right? Whereas the classroom courses, that relates to the classroom teacher in our course entity, right? And that's what's really needed to clarify. Now, optionally along with that, we can specify foreign key, like in the course model, as you see here, to clarify that this particular integer, is the foreign key for this online teacher object, right? Now, I'll tell you right now, if you forget this foreign key annotation, most of the time Entity Framework will figure out what it is you're trying to do, as long as you follow the naming pattern as we've usually done it here, right? But it does certainly help clarification to have that in our code as well. So I'd encourage you to do it as a general rule. Okay, that's it. So now we have the two relationships between course and teacher, fully defined, no ambiguity, boom, we're good. All right. So I thought we might consider an example. Actually, I almost forgot. In a sports game here, you got like home team and away team, right? So that's a good one to think about. And let me point out this. In the, remember this PowerPoint? Good old POCO. We went through this last term. We kept on adding more and more relationships to it as time went on. Well, I almost forgot that we actually did have this in there, right? The last couple of slides in the PowerPoint talk about inverse property, and with the specific example of sports teams and games, right? A team plays many games. A game has two teams. So we'll often refer to them as the home team and away team, right? So, that is something that we need to clarify then. We have to have two foreign key properties, pardon me, for the two different teams, the home team and away team. And we'll have two I collections in the parent, right? So we end up, pardon me, looking something like this, Very similar to the relationship we just were looking at there with courses and teachers. But you see here inside the game, you've got two different teams. One we're going to call home team, the other away team. And we can use the foreign key annotation here to make it clear that the integer foreign key values correspond to which team. And of course, back inside team itself, right, we'll have the two collections in this parent, okay, of this family of relationships here, right? Both of them are collections of game, but we distinguish them as home games and away games, and inverse property helps us see which of the actual foreign key objects we're building collections of as we do so. So that's good. So we're going to look at an example of actually doing this specific team game arrangement inside of an actual application here. So here, what I've got pretty much as I had it on the screen. So in the team, I threw in here a name. I mean, a team's got to have a name, right? And, you know, there's probably a whole bunch of other attributes you could add here as well, but I'm not going to worry about that. We'll definitely have a collection of players that are on the team, right? So that's something we would have. But here we have that a team is going to have all the games that they play, right? We'll have I collection, but we need to distinguish the home games and away games, right? And coming over here to our game, right? We have a summary property, and I just have a note here. You'd probably in the real world, if this is a fully fleshed out application, have all kinds of other properties in here, like, you know, what stadium or field or, you know, wherever was the game played. I have a start date and time, right? That's just at the minimum there to help identify the game itself. But down here, we have our foreign keys. So here's our home team, okay, our team object, and our away team. They're both teams. And of course, the corresponding integer foreign key values, right? So that's just as we were talking about. By the way, I threw in I-validatable object here because one of the things you want to be careful of is you can't have the team play itself, right? So if you accidentally, in entering data, you selected the same team for both home and away, well, we're going to catch that here. Like if they match the team IDs, then we'll show up a validation error message. Hey, the teams can't play yourself, right? Just I've expanded it a little bit here beyond just the two entities. So obviously there's going to be something like an intersection between the game and the players. Now that's a little bit controversial. You might say, well, maybe we would have a collection of players for the players playing for the home team and the players playing for the away team. I would say don't do that, right? Because players don't always play on the same teams, right? So it's better to have an overall collection of game players, right? So if we just have a look at the actual game player entity for a second, okay? I'm going to have its own integer IDs. That makes it easy to reference, but make sure you do, make sure that the combination of player and game is unique. Okay, you do that in your Fluent API. All right, but here I'm going to have also a batting order, right? And the batting order then allows you to specify which, well, you know what a batting order is, right? Basically, they're going to be the first to bat, the second up to bat, third up to bat, and so on. So that's something you might practically put in here as well. Okay. Oh, before I forget, here's another property that makes sense to have in this intersection or associative entity, the team lineup. Now, what is that? Okay. Well, that is a qualifier, you might say. It's an enumeration, okay, of home and away. And that way, for every way that a player relates to a given game, right, we can specify here, okay, they're played in this game, but they were on the home team or the away team, and that's in this team lineup enumeration itself. Okay, so that way we just have all the players together in one collection, but we can easily distinguish them, home and away, by the team lineup, as well as, of course, we have the batting order that we can play with as well. So what's the purpose of doing all this extra work here? Well, let me just run the application, give you an idea of why we might add this extra little bit into it. And wait. Okay, here we go. So let me come here. Here's a list of all my games, right? Team this versus team that, okay? And the date and time that the game started and so on and so forth. All right, let's just go to details. So what we're doing in code is we're initially, when we create the game, okay, this is team 20 versus team 7. Hey, I didn't bother with names, right? You can see these are all the players on the actual team itself, right? So we initially load, as we would expect, okay, all the players on team 7, would make up the away team here, right? Because we said that they were going to be the team, the away team in this particular game, starting on this date, etc., right? Okay, but you know what happens in the real world, right? This is good. We have this initial lineup, so to speak, but we might need to edit the lineup. Hey, it comes game day. Let me click this. You see what we have now. We can change the sort order by moving them up and down, but we can also add and remove players because you know what? This player here, Vivian, sick, not here today. Same with this person, right? They just didn't show up for some reason. So, we're losing players all over the place, right? Oh no, look at all these players that are gone now, right? We only have these ones showed up. Well, you know what? We need to add a couple more players here in order to actually make things work. So I can come over here and I see we have players from all different teams. But you know what? These guys were sitting in the background as long as they aren't, maybe from the same team that we're fighting against. Here, this person is from team 8. Well, they put up their hand and said, sure, I'll sub in, right? So we'll add them to the lineup. And we can see right there, they're on team 8. But you know what? He's really good, right? So we're going to move him right up to the first position in the batting order. Let me just save that lineup. And there you see. So there's that player from team 8 right in position 1. But then somebody objects, no, we've got to move them down. We'll move them down to the second, and there they go, right? So there you go. So that gives you an idea of how this can all work in relation to each other. So we can edit both lineups and so on, and away we go. By the way, I know you'll be curious. So that business of reordering in the list boxes, I'll post this code. But if you come up here, you remember this multi-select JavaScript file? Yeah, same one that we used last term. Okay, all I've really done is I've added an extra little bit of code here for reordering the elements, right? So that allows us to have our button up and our button down. And basically, we just go to the selected option and then we do an insert before or insert after, okay, the sibling right next to it, right? So it's pretty straightforward really to do that. It just goes an extra little function that we call inside the multi-select JavaScript that we already use for our multi-select list boxes. Okay. All right, so hopefully you found that somewhat interesting. So again, when you've got two different ways that two entities relate to each other, inverse property, that is your key to success.